Hello. Hi, Tammy. So I'm going to start right now. Um, so let's open this up. Um, Share screen. What we're going to do is go through my Driving for Dollars course, part of the Maples Academy coaching, as you know. And let's get to it. I don't know if you've gotten to this part yet, but we're going to go through it together. And I am not the best at PowerPoint. So I'm gonna figure this out right now. Full screen mode, there it is. Okay, so what you are looking for when you're driving for dollars. There are lots of things to look for, but you want to have at a minimum 2 or 3 of these qualities per house before you add it to your driving for dollars list. The other thing you want to look for is how long the person's owned the home. So whenever I'm doing driving for dollars or adding it to my list, granted, this will be 2 separate categories. One, if you actually use Deal Machine, when you open Deal Machine up, it'll tell you how long the person has owned the home. If you don't use Deal Machine and you're doing the free method, which we're going to go through both, the free method, you'll have to write down the address and then look up that information later. So for example, this is one of the houses that I added
Yeah,
while
piss me off
driving for.
if it's them.
This is one of the houses I added while I was driving for dollars. This house actually, you see all this brush was all completely covered as I was driving by it, and I had my Deal Machine app open, and that's the only reason why I knew there was a house there, was because on Deal Machine I could see it on the map, but if you were looking in real life, you couldn't see it. And sure enough, I had parked and walked through all the bushes, and there was the house. So you can't really see in this picture, but there was basically trees and stuff growing on the roof. The siding is all worn down and sun damaged, weather damaged. The windows were pretty good, but you can't see it either. These stairs, they were cement stairs and they were completely covered by growth, brush. Like nobody had walked on these stairs in like 10 years. So this was the perfect specimen to add to my driving for dollars list. And I did that via Deal Machine. Obviously driving for dollars, if you guys don't know what that is basically driving around any neighborhood looking for fixer properties. What you do is you get these fixer properties under contract, and then you can either flip it yourself, you can wholesale it to an investor, or you can have it as your own rental, whatever you choose. But driving for dollars is the main form of lead generation that I like to do. I like to call only fixers and target only fixers, because whether I flip it or wholesale it or keep it, the fixer in all house circumstances usually has the most potential, because you're buying it like this, like a full beater. So this is a good example of what to look for while you're driving for dollars. Um, Here's some others examples. So as you guys are driving in your neighborhoods, so each kind of city slash state has their own style of housing. So if this house was in Washington, so Washington has a lot of older houses like 1920, 1930 builds. They also have a lot of siding, like the siding is a normal thing, versus in Arizona or when I was in California, stucco is more of the regular norm. You rarely ever see siding. So when you guys drive around your own neighborhoods, you'll be able to figure out I guess, um, what materials are used frequently, and then you can tell the wear and tear of these materials. So like siding is really easy. The paint chips off easy. The color fades easily. Obviously, you could see it gets wood rot, it falls apart. Um, Stucco is about the same way. It can fade as far as paint goes, and get chipped, but siding is easier to tell wear and tear. So these are the things that you're looking for when you are driving for dollars and looking for fixers. So I don't know if you can see this little house over here, but it's in good shape, right? Versus this house that is dirty, falling apart, windows are boarded up, things of that nature. So I look for tarps on the roof. Sometimes if you look at roofs, you can even see like patches of discoloration or just things that are wrong on the roof. So tarps on the roof would be one of them. Discoloring would be another one. If you see different materials, like I drove for dollars last week and there was a roof that I seen that literally every couple feet, it looked like a different patch of roofing material had been used to cover the holes on this house. So that one would have qualified for what I'm looking for. Unkept yards. So specifically in Washington, when it's overgrown like this, you know that somebody's not there because it rains a lot, that grows a lot. In Arizona, it's more like dead grass. If you're in California, it would probably be the same. So unkept yard would just be overgrown. They're obviously not taking care of their landscaping. Paint fading on the outside of the house, like I told you, this one, or if it's a different material, it could be that kind of paint fading. Garbage or clutter. So sometimes the garbage and clutter or the house itself doesn't look too terrible, but the outside of it looks like a hoarder house. And what you would see would be like broken down cars, or there was one house that I drove by that literally had 4 refrigerators just sitting on the porch. So the house itself doesn't look terrible, but there is literally clutter and garbage coming outside of the house, which at that point you're going to assume the inside is a hoarder house, which would qualify. Um, like I said, trash on the outside, front or back. So sometimes you can see the front of the house looks decent, and then you drive around the corner or you drive towards the alley and you can see the backyard is completely trashed. I will add those to my list as well. Discolored blinds or covered windows. So discoloring of the blinds usually comes when somebody is smoking or some sort of smoke inside the house, will discolor the blinds. They'll go from white to like this dingy brown beige color. So I always add those because I assume there's something happening in the house. The other thing is covered windows. So this one in particular is obviously covered by plywood. So that would be a super loud red flag. But sometimes if you look at people's windows, they will have aluminum foil or plastic or newspapers, or sometimes they are using like shower curtains as a regular curtain. I will add those to my list. So even though the house itself, like the actual structure might not look terrible, if it has any of those characteristics, I usually add that to my list of qualifying properties. So this is just a bunch of pictures of what I'm talking about. So this is actually one of the houses I flipped. As you can see right here, all of this house is like all green, but it's very much a faded green. And then if you could see right here on this side, the owner was trying to repair the siding, and all of the repairs had been done in different shades of gray. So this is what lit up this house for me. Also, this is very tiny corner of what was going on in this yard, front and backyard, of how much trash and stuff was around the house. So this would be a good example. Obviously, this one you can see my friend actually flipped this house, but there's moss growing on the top. You could see the roof is kind of sagging, to say the least. This door was about to fall off when I went and looked at it, and it just looks really, really bad. So not a hoarder house on the outside, but the actual structure itself is really questionable. This is another example of paint chipping slash siding chipping that I would add. This is actually a detached garage on a house I full sold. So the house itself didn't look this terrible, but the garage looked this bad. So I added that to my list. This is burn, like a kitchen fire or some sort of fire happened in this. This is actually a fourplex, happened in this house. So I talked to this owner before they fixed it up, and then she ended up rehabbing this house herself, and it is listed at 1.2 million, I believe, right now. But I was sending her letters and talking to her before she had done any of the rehab and trying to ask her if she would be willing to sell it pre-renovation, because I didn't want to buy it at full list price. And she said no, that they were going to try to rehab it themselves, and they did, which was kind of cool to see the whole process. I sent her letters in the mail. If you guys have talked to me before, I like to handwrite, or not handwrite, but I send out a personal letter to all of my Driving for Dollars leads. So she ended up calling me from the Driving for Dollars letter that I sent her. And I probably sent her 3 before she sent me a letter. I will get that question after. This one right here was another letter recipient, somebody who reached out to me via one of the letters I mailed. This person had inherited this house, and because of what I wrote on my letter, which was very personalized to me and Logan, the guy aligned to me because he inherited this house from his mom, and I write about Logan in my letter, so that's why he reached out to me. But this house is missing siding. The front of the house had broken down cars. This doesn't look too terrible here, but in real life, it looked way worse. It was worse than just this missing siding. This is the house I just showed you, but the front angle of it. So here's all of the gray kind of patching that they were doing to the siding. Here's some of the junk. There was more junk when I initially bought this house, and then the backyard. I don't know if I included a picture of the backyard on this one, but it was covered with shit, basically. So that was a super hoarder one. This one. So as you could see, like right here, it's discolored. It's the paint's chipping away, and that's more of like a stucco part. So that's what it looks like when it starts fading. The windows are super old. This thing is basically getting mold and rot on it. This grass yard, you can't see it in this picture, but further back was super unkept. The paint's fading. You can see right here, the siding's falling off. Even right here, the gutters look like they're about to fall off too, and the eaves. Those are all signs of things that I'm looking for as I'm driving for dollars. This is the house that I converted the basement. So as you could see, paint chipping. If you got close up to here, the eaves are falling apart. This house doesn't even have gutters on the majority of it. This window was like circa the 60s. This is what I'm looking for, right? And then obviously here you could see all the things. Half the house is missing the siding. You could see right here, this is the underlayment layer of siding. There's different color paints. The windows are tore up. I mean, I don't have to explain this one. The grass is kept up correctly, but the rest of the house is in terrible freaking condition. This is that garage that I was showing you guys earlier. This is a good example of roof issues. So if you see something like this, like patchiness or whatever, I would add that to the list. And then it's kind of hard to tell in this photo, but every single one of these windows in this house is broken. So this is what's left of this window. You can see it right here. There's a big giant hole. There's like bullet holes in this house. This is the same one over here. Like every single window in this house was completely broken. The structure itself, like the siding doesn't look terrible. It's in good shape, but these windows were broken. And then if you looked in the front window of this house, you could see it was completely torn up. There's like graffiti on the inside of the house. And I ended up wholesaling this one because I was in the middle of flipping, oh, this house. I was in the middle of finishing flipping this house and I could not get funding to do this house. So I ended up wholesaling it and making 30,000. So the bonus of knowing what to look for in driving for dollars, looking for these things is depending on where you're at in your own business, whether you're focusing on wholesaling or focusing on flipping or focusing on buy and holds, you have all of the options slash end results in your hand, basically, right? I couldn't buy this one because I was in the middle of flipping another one, so I wholesaled it and I still made money. But the only reason I was able to do that was because I found the deal. I was able to get it under contract and then get it to one of my friends. So that was kind of a side note, but that's why looking for deals, driving for dollars, cold calling, whatever option of prospecting you choose is so important because all of the money, all of your options are found in if you find the deal. So that was a wholesale of mine. This one is another kitchen fire burn, as you can see. This kind of, and this siding, you can tell this was vinyl siding. That's why it looks all melted and gross like that. This one right here, I took a picture of because the siding itself and the house itself doesn't look bad. But I took this picture, I want to say it was April or May-ish. And the roof, like you could see, that's covered with something. I can't tell what it was. But there's Christmas lights and there's holiday decorations, like Thanksgiving slash Christmas in the middle of April, which is not normal, right? People take all of this down in a normal scenario. Also, this yard is not kept up too well. So I added this one, not so much for the structure, even though it has some of the things, but more because it was the wrong season to have these lights up. And what that means is either somebody in there can't take them down, there's something happening in this house for them to have left all of these lights up. So that's usually a sign of either distress, they need some help, or maybe they're elderly or whatever the case may be. I will add houses like this to my list as well. This was my first Tacoma flip. So this house basically has all the criteria of everything that I look for. It was a corner lot. It looked, so this is post cleanup. This is when I bought it. So there, you can't see it in the picture, but there was a full boat over here. There's refrigerators, there was motorcycles, there was trailers to hook up boats on here. The inside of the house, which I don't think I included the inside of the house, but the bedrooms were stacked like floor to ceiling with metal pieces of bikes, just anything recyclable. The story of this house was the mom, the grandma, and the adult son. I want to say he was in his 30s or 40s, lived in this house, and the son had a drug problem. So the son would go and find recyclable materials like metal or aluminum or whatever he could find, and he would shove it all in the bedrooms and inside the house, and he would recycle it and then have money for his drugs. Aside from the bedrooms being stacked to the ceiling with literally bicycles, tires, like whatever he could find, there was a path like maybe 1.5 feet long from this door right here, which this is the back door. You couldn't even open the front door of this house. There was a path from this door back to one of the bedrooms, and the grandma and the mom shared a mattress that was on the floor. And if you guys follow any of my social media stuff, you've seen this house before where the toilet and the bathroom is just like flies and it's literally full of shit. So this is another very obvious, I guess, specimen for my driving for dollars list. This is how bad it looked before. Then what happened as I was cleaning it up was that the neighbors knew I had bought the house. They knew that the current owners had left because there's a lot of yelling and not nice things happening here. So the neighbors started dumping garbage on the lawn as I was cleaning it up. So this house in particular ended up taking me an extra, I want to say week or two of just cleanup, and then an extra 5,000 in dump fees because I was then not only dumping the original stuff, but then the stuff that all the neighbors were leaving me. So that was fun. This is my first flip I did in Arizona. So this is an example of what stucco looks like when it starts fading. You see how it's all splotchy. In Arizona, we have a bunch of really dry desert, obviously weather. So a lot of times you don't get overgrown, but you'll get stuff like this, like the weeds in the rocks, and like it's just unkept. As you can see here, like the eaves on this house were basically rotten and almost about to fall off. And the windows were old. It was just dirty, nasty, grimy kind of scenario, but this is what it looked like when I added it to my list. So I know I said in the beginning that there is a free option of driving for dollars, and then there's a paid option for driving for dollars. So what you're looking at right here are screenshots of Deal Machine. Deal Machine is what I prefer to use when I drive for dollars. There's an app on your phone as well as a desktop version that has a lot more detail than what the app goes through. And basically it'll show you as you add a house to your list, it'll show you a Google Earth, I believe, image of the house, or you can manually add a picture of the house so you remember what it looks like as you're driving. And it'll tell you an estimated value, which I don't really pay too much attention to this. This to me is like a Zillow's estimate number. I know that if I got this house under contract, I wouldn't be paying this much. So I have a lot of my coaching clients ask me, should I make a filter based on the price I can actually afford on a fixer when I go to flip it? And I said, no, because this will always be higher than what you will probably end up paying for this property. So ignore this number. Also, it will tag everything that this house complies for. So obviously it's off market. This loan happens to be an adjustable loan. It has high equity. So right here, you could see the percentage of equity in this house. They have 73%. So it's almost paid off, and it's a senior owner. If you were running a list and you're looking for only senior owners, you could make that a tag and look just for senior owners. If you're looking for tax delinquent properties, which they will show you in Deal Machine, you could tag it. If you wanted to look for pre-foreclosure, if you wanted to look for out-of-state owners, if you wanted to look for any number of those things that usually people tag on their farms, you can do that via Deal Machine. The other thing it'll do is, this is the property address of the property I selected. This will say the owner's mailing address. So if this showed up as a different address than this prospective address, then you would know this is a rental property. And when you call, just keep that in mind, because if you're calling an owner occupied home and you're speaking to the owner, it's a little bit of a different script than non-owner occupied if you're speaking to a landlord or this home happens to be a rental. It shows you beds and baths and the square footage of the home. And then what's nice in Deal Machine is that it'll show you it'll skip trace for you included in your monthly membership. So I believe the cheapest membership of Deal Machine is about $100 a month, and it includes the skip tracing. So all these little dots down here would be a different person. And then you have emails and phone numbers that you can contact the owner of this house and ask them if they want to sell or not. The other thing that Deal Machine has, this is the second window, but it has all of the loan information. It has all of the house information. So when you're running comps, it's really good to have this information. If you scroll down on that window, it'll tell you whether they're tax delinquent or not, what the last year of taxes was that they paid. And then here you have the different tabs. So Once you add a property to your list, you can look in the comps and it'll show you everything that is sold in the immediate area in a certain radius. I usually look half a mile radius around the subject property for comps, and it'll show you all that in this tab. And then the other thing that Deal Machine does that's really cool is that you can send postcards out via Deal Machine. So I personally like to write my own personalized letter when I do mail. But if you are time restricted, let's say you have a 9 to 5, or you just don't have time for one reason or another to send out personalized letters, you can turn postcard mailings on via just your Driving for Dollars. And what the postcard will do is include either the picture that you took while you're driving for dollars, or it'll include the Google image of the house. And you can pick different designs and it'll say like, I believe you own the property at blah, blah. Are you interested in potentially selling it? And then in the back, it has your contact information. And you can set this on a sequence. So whether you want a postcard to hit every 30 days, every 60 days, once a quarter, you can change all of that in here and it auto does it for you. And then the other thing it does is it'll keep track of every time a postcard got sent out. So I use Deal Machine not only for the Driving for Dollars aspect, but I also use it as a CRM. So when I do handwrite my own letters, or if I end up calling them, you can add notes or log activity here, and then you can kind of create this as a little CRM. It doesn't have reminder functions or things of that nature like Follow Up Boss or any of those more fancier ones do, but if you wanted to be more budget conscious / friendly, you could use this as a secondary tool, basically. So that's what you would do for Deal Machine. If you end up doing Driving for Dollars for free, which you guys will all get the spreadsheet that I created, which keeps track of the properties as you're driving, not as you're driving, but let's say you're driving for dollars and you're not using Deal Machine. You're like, I can't afford this $100 a month, forget it. What you can do is you can, if you have an iPhone, if you take a picture of the house, usually in the details, it'll say the actual address of the house that you took the picture of. So you could track it that way. You could just bring a notebook with you and write down the address as you're driving down the blocks. But what I highly, highly recommend if you're going down that free route, because that's what I did when I started. I didn't have Deal Machine when I started. I would write addresses like on the back of napkins, on the back of envelopes, like on random pieces of paper. And I would never put it in a centralized location. So that's why I created the spreadsheets. I'm like, if you want to start doing this, you want to do it for free, I just recommend use that damn spreadsheet. Because if you were like me and had your addresses every which way known to man, you will lose your leads. You won't know the last time you talked to them. You won't know the last time you sent a letter to them. You won't even remember the address, and you'll end up finding it months later when you're cleaning out shit. That's when I would find them all the time, and I would be like, damn it, like I was driving for dollars and I didn't put this in my thing, and I would check it and it would be sold or whatever would happen. So I created this spreadsheet. It has a column in it for your address, the owner's information, phone numbers, and then it has dates that you reached out to them and what form that you chose to reach out to them, whether it was a phone call, a letter, a door knock, an email, whatever. So that will be sent to all of you guys when we're done here. So if you don't end up getting Deal Machine, you can at least keep track of your leads that way. And I have plenty of friends still to this day that use just a Google spreadsheet as a CRM. And you can do that as well if you end up doing the free route of Driving for Dollars. The other thing you will need if you end up doing free Driving for Dollars is truepeoplesearch.com. So truepeoplesearch.com is a website that you can do one-off skip tracing. And what skip tracing is basically you're getting the information of the homeowner. So if you go on truepeoplesearch.com, you type in the address of whatever property you've driven by, it'll bring up the owner's information, It'll bring up whatever phone numbers are associated with that person. And I believe it brings up the mailing address as well. So if you chose to write them a letter, you could do it that way. And that's free, but you just have to type in one address at a time. So it's just a slow process. The other way you could do it is when you start getting a chunky list. Let's say you've got 50 leads, you got 50 fixer houses that you've added to your spreadsheet. What you could do is take that spreadsheet to propstream.com or batchleads.com or any of these skip tracing services or spokeo.com and basically upload the spreadsheet that you've created into one of these programs and skip the entire list at once. So you can do the paid version and keep track of it via Deal Machine. You can do it for free, put it in that spreadsheet, and then look them up for free on truepeoplesearch.com. But if you end up getting like 50, 100 properties, and as you keep growing your driving for dollars list, it's just going to get bigger. You can take that Excel spreadsheet, if it's in a CSV file, and upload it into one of the programs to skip trace it and pay, and you get it done all at once. Most skip tracing services, they cost 12 to 15 cents an address. So let's say you have a list of 100 houses, it would cost you 15 bucks to skip trace it and get all of the owner's information, their phone numbers, their mailing address, and have it all in one place all at one time. So you have a different level of options, but if you're going to go paid route, Deal Machine is the best thing I have used in the last 4 years. If you end up going the free route, please just keep it in your Excel spreadsheet or put it somewhere where you can go back and reference this thing every day, every other day as you add more leads. Because if you do like me and you end up having literally envelopes and napkins with addresses, it won't serve you at all. You won't be able to nurture your leads or keep track of them. And the majority, or I should say the grand poobah of real estate is follow-up. And if you have all of these leads and addresses on all of these loose end papers everywhere, you won't be able to track your follow-up or do any of that. So use the spreadsheet. I created it for a reason. I wish I had that spreadsheet when I started. So use it if you're going to go the free route. If you're not going to go the free route, there are other driving for dollar apps that you can use, but Deal Machine is the best and easiest one to use. At least that's my own opinion. So I use it. I highly recommend. And then spreadsheet if free route. So the other thing you want to look at, like I told you, you want to see how long the person has owned the home. So when you're using Deal Machine and as you're driving on your phone, if you're trying to add a home, it'll pop up just like this. So you can see the last time, the last recording date, this house in particular, they bought it in 2007. Sometimes I will find fixers that look like you can kick them and they will fall over, that they've only been owned for a year, sometimes 2 years. And in those scenarios, I always assume that it is somebody's project that they haven't gotten to yet, and I won't add them to my list because you want to target things that they've either owned it for a long time, they have high equity, or it's a super dumpster fire fixer. But if they've bought in the last year or two, I personally don't bother. I usually look for 3+ years. Because 3+ years, it's most likely a homeowner in there. It's not somebody's project. It's not any sort of thing that's going to be kept long-term. And I don't try to target houses that I don't think they're not going to sell in the next 6 months or a year. Like I want high equity, long-term ownership, super fixer. Like these are all layers of qualifications that will make me assume that the person is going to sell soon. So when I have Deal Machine, I always look for that when I'm looking, or at least when I'm driving for dollars and adding stuff. It's not government owned. So on this mailing address, I have found houses that say the United States of America, and it is basically a house that has been taken over by SWAT or the FBI or whatever because it was a drug, what would you call it? Meth lab, like a drug house lab that got raided by the government. So if you happen to see United States of America here on the mailing address, I would not bother. And I know that sounds crazy, but I have seen it as I was driving for dollars in Tacoma. So it's a thing. Don't add that. And then if it's a 2-bed, 1-bath, make sure it's more than 900 square feet. So this rule, obviously, if you're driving for dollars and you're using the free route, you're not going to be able to tell these things. You'll have to look it up once you get home and add those addresses to your spreadsheet list. But if you're using Deal Machine, you can see right here what the bed and bath is of the house. And I look for this in particular because if it's 900 plus square feet, the likelihood of you being able to add another bed and bath to this house is very high. And most of the flips or the houses that I've done have been around 1,000, 1,100 square feet, and I can fit a 3-bed, 2-bath in there. So when you find a house that's 2-bed, 1-bath, and it's got a decent amount of square footage, if you know you can add another bed and bath in there, you will automatically knock up your ARV. A lot of times it's like 50 grand, 40, 50 grand just by adding the bedroom alone. So when you're looking at properties to potentially flip or hold, because then if you end up having, let's say you buy this house and you keep it as a rental, so you would make it then a 3-bed, 1-bath. A 3-bed, 1-bath, let's say just in Tacoma, for example, will rent between 2,200 and 2,400, but a 2-bed, 1-bath will only rent between 1,600 and 1,800. So you would, in the one move of building another bedroom, not only are you knocking up your rental income that you could potentially get your cash flow on a property, but if you choose to flip it, you could also knock your ARV up a good 40, 50 grand just by adding another another bedroom. A lot of times, specifically in the older neighborhoods, a second bathroom is nice for the buyer, but it doesn't affect the ARV as much as going up from a 2-1 to a 3-1 versus going up from a 2-1 to a 3-2. And sometimes the construction cost does not, or the ARV does not justify the amount of construction it would cost to add another bathroom. So as you guys are looking at your different markets, you want to keep an eye out on that. Like, even if you look, let's say you look on Zillow or Redfin, like whenever I move to a different market, if you guys are all starting off brand new, you guys should make it a daily task or just something that you do every day, that you just kind of look at what a given city, if you're driving for dollars in it, what a 2-bed, 1-bath will sell for and what a 3-bed, 2-bath will sell for. And then you'll kind of get familiar with what the ARV differences are. And then as you go and start looking for properties off market, you can apply those numbers for reference. Let's say in this scenario, you guys are starting out, you're like, I can't flip right now. I don't have the money for that. I am going to wholesale first because that's what I need. I need to stack a little bit of money and then I'm going to go flip. If you end up wholesaling something like this and you say you get a 2-1 under contract, and let's say it's 1,100 square feet, you know for a fact that that house could be turned into a 3-bed, 2-bath. Immediately the ARV goes up, which then the price that you can wholesale it for will also go up. So if you find opportunities like this and you end up wholesaling them to an investor, you will be able to get a higher assignment fee if you know those values. So I know this isn't super related to the actual active driving for dollars, but this is value add that I look for as I'm driving for dollars. So just so you guys know, that is what I look for. I think that's it. Oh no, there's another one. This is another example of obviously fixer. This house in particular had somebody handicapped there. That's a handicapped lift. But if you're making a farm, let's say you're starting out in a new area and you want to find houses that hit a certain criteria before you actually start driving, this is the criteria I look for. You guys can take a picture of this if you want. But that's what I look for in my filters. So like I told you on the last screen, Deal Machine has filters and tags. You can look for certain properties. This is what I look for. Some neighborhoods like in Tacoma or in, I don't know, any neighborhood that has older homes like 1910, 1920, sometimes you have to put an older year than 1990. Versus in Arizona, a lot of the houses are newer. So I will look 1990 and older because literally there is a very small population of houses older than 1960. So I need to broaden the age of the house more in Arizona versus in Washington. I would put it in the 1960 or older, and I wouldn't look at anything less than that because there was more houses in that age range than newer. So take a picture of that. And then I'm pretty sure this is the last one. So do you guys have any questions for me? You can raise your hand, or actually I could go in the chat and see what you have said. Otherwise raise your hands and then I'll get to you live. I'm wondering if wholesale students from California. I'm here to learn, especially when it comes to estimating rehab costs. I'll get better into flipping after wholesaling. I have been working in mortgage over the last 3 years, and I'm now transitioning into focusing on real estate investing. Oh, thank you. So estimated rehab costs. I have a whole section in my flipping course about estimating rehab costs. It depends what market you're in. So you're in California, but are you North Bay, South Bay, LA? Are you near SAC? Like where are you in California? For one, I can answer your question. Okay, well, if you're not there, Tarek, if you're in Northern California, like San Francisco Bay Area, that's where I'm from. The construction costs are higher per square foot when you're estimating. So if you're focusing on wholesaling now and you're estimating rehab costs, you should be estimating in brackets, right? It should be 30 to 40-ish dollars for a light cosmetic rehab, 60 to $80 for a heavier rehab, not a full gut, that's a different level, but a heavier rehab. Basically, you're touching every aspect of the house from the drywall in. A full gut rehab is including the drywall, studs, insulation, plumbing, electrical, anything that's behind the drywall, that would be a studs out remodel. That you're looking at $100 to $125 a square foot. Every flip that I've done has pretty much fit into those categories. So when you walk your properties, that's the estimate you want to use per square foot. And then once you actually buy the property and get into the bidding process of that, obviously each contractor will have their own kind of bid criteria or cost per square foot. So like one contractor I worked with, he would charge $2 a square foot to lay LVP, but the other contractor that I had worked with would charge $3. So they will all adjust a little bit as you talk to each one, but overall, if you use those brackets, light rehab is 30 to 40, heavy mid-level rehab is 60 to 80, and then studs out, like your studs of the wall out, everything in that wall is $100 to $125 a square foot. So those are the estimates that I use for flipping. Can I share what I write on my letter? Yes, I do. So my letter says, I write it on a Microsoft Word document. It's a Word doc, and it says, "Hi there," and then it has the homeowner's name. My name is Sabrina. My name's Sabrina Maples, and I live in XYZ. I am a mother to a 5-year-old boy, and we live in blah blah. I used to live in blah blah, so you could use this template yourself. Um, Life has taken me on quite a journey, and I am now focusing on real estate and ensuring that my son has a good future. I believe you, and then that's like the first paragraph. And then the second paragraph says, I believe you own a property on blah, blah, blah. And if you consider selling it, I would love to have a conversation with you, whether it's now or a year from now. Um, Whatever I can do to help you out in the process, I'm more than willing to have a conversation with you. Like, all of the stuff will be kept private and blah, 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 blah. So that's how the first paragraph of my letter is, that's how it's incorporated. That's what it says. He basically says I'm a mom to a 5-year-old boy, and we live in blah. So that's what it says. All of my coaching students, I tell them to write letters like that in particular, because it'll give you a little bit of an edge based on other people who are mass mail marketing, right? If you use even the Deal Machine postcard, there's nothing really personal in that postcard. So you and 1,000 other people could be like sending that same postcard versus my letter. Nobody's going to send a letter with my story in it to the homeowner. And I've had homeowners tell me that they've called me because of the personalization in the letter versus the like mass mail postcards that they get. So that's why I do it. Yes, it takes more time. It's about the same cost as if you mass mail. So the cost isn't much different. It just takes more of my own personal time. But I've had people hold those letters for 6 months and then call me and say, hey, I got your letter X amount of months ago. Are you still interested in buying? So that's why I like to do the personalized ones. Do you purchase out of state? I live in California. Yes, I purchase, I have a rental in Alabama, in Phoenix City, Alabama, and then I just started prospecting in Ohio. So I am open to buying in Ohio. And then I live in Arizona now, so I'm buying in Arizona, and I also still live, or not live, but I still target Tacoma, Washington. So I have a couple spots outside of my home state that I buy in. If you are in California, depending on where you are, and if you're focused on flipping, there's a lot of good flipping potential in California. It's a little harder to hold rental properties in California because property prices are so high, and then the rent, even though it's high, is still not high enough to cover the mortgage on most properties. That's not to say that there isn't opportunity in California, but if you're looking for cash flow heavy type properties, you would be better off looking in like Ohio or Indiana or certain areas of Texas. But if you choose to do out of state, which I have a out of state rental course that I've already created. I just haven't recorded the modules yet. That will also be part of Maples Academy. So if you're not interested in flipping, but you're interested in out of state rentals, I will have that coming soon. But you want to study that market just as much as if you would study your own backyard. So in Ohio, I know where the colleges are. I know where the business is. I know where the like really hood areas are to stay out of. I know the good zip codes. In Alabama, I did the same thing. In Alabama, my rental is right by the largest army base in the entire United States. So the likelihood of that army base closing is slim to none. And I'll always have a tenant in that property because of the military base. So I wouldn't just invest anywhere just for shits and giggles, or like if you end up going to Detroit, like Detroit, you could buy a property for like 5-10 grand, but there's no economy to support it in Detroit. There's no business, like businesses are leaving there. So if you choose the out of state route, just do some market research before you invest there, because if you don't have potential tenants for your rental properties, then there's no point of buying the rental property. So that is just my 2 cents for that. Thank you, Eddie, for posting. Yeah, truepeoplesearch.com is where you get all the free good stuff. Is adding an extra bedroom considered a bonus, like adding a dadu to the lot? I was told don't include new builds on a lot into your ARV, and it's just a bonus for an investor. Sacramento. Okay, perfect. Yes, so yes and no. If you are adding a bedroom into the house, you 100% calculate that into your ARV, because there are other houses around there that have sold that are technically 3-bed, 2-bath, or 3-bed, 1-bath, or whatever the case may be, that have sold already. So you have comps to support that ARV being knocked up. And also, if you choose to rent, it gets knocked up. I should use a different word other than knocked up, but that's the only one that's coming to me right now. But if it's a bedroom inside the house, yes, you count it. If it's a dadu potential on the lot, that's different. So in Sacramento, I don't believe that the dadu ADU lot is official yet, versus in Seattle, it's official. In Tacoma, they're about to make it go live. In LA, it is official. In Hayward, I believe, California, it's official. I don't know if it's gotten to SAC yet. So if you're looking at a lot and you can see that it has the dadu potential, you know in the back of your head that in a year or two, you can condoize it, you could subdivide it, you could build something back there, whatever the case may be. But that is only for your own reference. You can't really sell that yet because it's not legal yet. That's just like the same thing when I was in Tacoma the last 3 years. Seattle has had the dadu lot legal for a long time. And if you build a dadu in the back of a house in Seattle, it's worth $650 or $700. If you're in Tacoma and you have a lot with the alley and you build back there, the same exact build that you built in Seattle, which is half an hour away from Tacoma, the ARV is barely $450, maybe $500, and you can't legally subdivide or condoize it yet. So the value is just not there. It's not that the potential is not there, and that in 2 or 3 years that all the ARVs will go up, it'll be legal, and then you can actually comp it. But it depends on city by city whether it's legal or not. So you would have to check with the city of Sacramento. But in your scenario, in your question, if it's a bedroom within the house, yes, you count it as the ARV. If it's dadu lot bonus, then no, you don't count it, because you don't have comps or any legal laws set for that yet. So when it does become legal in Sacramento, you also don't want to be the first one building a dadu, because you don't know what's going to happen. You want to have a comp or two before you do it. But looking for lots with the build potential, the alley in the back, the enough space in the back, like that's a good thing. It's just a bonus, like you said. Do you disregard fixers if they're owned by an LLC? No. So a lot of times if you find a fixer that's owned by an LLC and it's in that 1 to 2 year ownership, like I talked about, I will disregard, because I'm assuming that that's a project on their list they haven't gotten to. If it's an LLC and it's been owned for 10 plus years, I assume that it is a like slumlord type landlord, and I will reach out to them. A lot of LLC owners are private individuals that are just trying to, they're just an individual and they've just put the house in an LLC. So I don't look at it any different than if it was the owner's name there. The only thing I look for is the time owned. That's the only difference, but I don't just eliminate it if it's an LLC, or what you'll see is a TEE or a TTEE or TEE or revocable trust or whatever. Those are all individuals that are just protecting themselves in being a landlord. Or if it's in a trust, a lot of times trusts are set up so in case somebody happens to pass away tragically or whatever the case may be, that the order of operations as far as what happens with that house is already set up in the trust, so it doesn't have to go into probate and all those other things. So If you're a homeowner, usually it's like last name first, then trust, revocable trust. Um, it's just a family planning. So no, I don't disregard those. Do you recommend to purchase out of state for starters? Um, so I have two opinions on this. The first rental I bought was out of state, but it wasn't the first renovation project I had done. That house was technically the third renovation that I had done. So if you're doing like your first project, like first flip, first construction project, I recommend you doing that in your backyard. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, if anything goes wrong with the construction, if you have to fire a contractor, if you have to check on that property, if you don't even know the order of operations of how a construction job goes, it is of the utmost value to have that property near you so you can touch it, you can walk it, you can be in more control of the project. Versus if you go and buy an out-of-state property, let's say you're in California and you buy it in Florida just for funsies, that is so far away. If any weird hiccup happens, if you need to be on the site for any reason, if your general contractor is pulling your chain because he knows you're not in Florida, it'll be harder for you to control and problem solve those issues with having no experience. Now that I've done enough in my backyard and I have that out of state rental, I feel like I could manage it out of state, but I always have boots on the ground in whatever state that I'm in. So like in Ohio, I have a real estate agent and a GC that I could call. I also have friends that invest in that market. So if it's something like shit hit the fan, I could call probably 3 or 4 people to help me and not have to physically go there. In Alabama was the same thing. I have the property manager, I have the real estate agent that helped me buy it, and then I have my ex-husband's friend who still lives in Alabama. So if an emergency happened, we could call him and he could be there in 20 minutes. So as your first construction project, I would say no, but it is an option for you to look at properties out there. It would just be, it's really hard to control the scenario if you're not physically there. If you don't have kids and it's easy for you to hop on a plane and go yell at somebody and manage the job if you needed to, if shit hits the fan, then by all means, like go ahead and try it. But I highly recommend you do at least one in your own neighborhood, go through the whole process in your own city, state, and then go out of state. So that is my opinion. Have you seen a dadu in Ohio? No. In Ohio, I think they have enough small multifamily that dadus aren't really a thing. I don't think they have as much population there as well to support dadu builds. In Arizona, specifically in Phoenix, I've seen them. They call them casitas out here. Obviously, all up and down in Washington, they're there. In California, in the Bay Area, specifically like San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward, there's dadus all over there. In San Jose, my grandma has a rental in San Jose, and there are some houses that they've converted the garages. Instead of allowing the person renting the house to have the garage, they've converted it into an ADU and are renting the garages out for like 2 to 3 grand. So the dadus seem to pop up and are more popular in areas that have higher density, that have more population. In Ohio, I just don't see it yet. Plus the properties are really cheap in Ohio. In let's say Seattle, Thatcher said many times that a dadu for him to build one is between like 300 and 350 versus like if you were to take that same cost and go plop one in Ohio, you can buy a fourplex for that price. So then there's not really too much value in the dadus in Ohio. So you would have to do market research to see whether it's actually needed or not. So like Tacoma doesn't have as really high population. They need more affordable housing. Seattle's the same way, Federal Way, like all those areas in Washington. Versus like if you go to Moses Lake, which is like Eastern Washington, it's not as popular there because they're not as densely populated. And the houses are cheaper too. So you build a house out there for 200 grand, it's only going to be worth like 250, 300. So there's a couple layers of whether dadus are worth building or not. But in Ohio in particular, I wouldn't bother. Okay, so any of you guys have any other questions as we wrap this up here? No? Okay, and then just so you know that I am going to pick one of you guys to have a free month of coaching with me. I need to find some sort of scrambling website to put your emails in, but if you showed up and if you've stayed here this entire time, you will automatically be entered and I will send you an email as to whether you've won or not. And then I'm planning on doing a free webinar once a month, whether it is driving for dollars again, or maybe out of state investing, or maybe just a script practice role play scenario. So I plan on doing these once a month. So if you guys wanted to come back, just obviously keep track of my emails that get sent to you. And thank you all very much for being here. I hope you learned a little some so you guys can start doing your own driving for dollars lists. And yeah, have a good morning. Start driving, get them leads. Okay, bye.